About 4 weeks ago, I had replaced the pads on the rear of this car, 06 325i, and I used just regular Napa, whatever the cheap Napa brake pads were to do it. No problems on the back, worked great, so I went ahead and replaced the front. Figured it was due. If the rears were grinding into the rotors, it was time to do the fronts also. So I did, and I used the same Napa rotors and the same Napa branded pads, and for about 2 days everything was great. My wife was driving the car to work or to school, and she said it was squeaking like crazy. And long story short, after about 3 weeks of the front brakes squeaking under just the light application of the brakes, I couldn't take it anymore. I had done everything I knew to do. I'd even put a bunch of the all this brake lube stuff. I tried this stuff, if it'll focus in on it there, ultra disc brake caliper lube. I put that all over the caliper mounting points, wherever the metal touched the metal, and on the back of the pads, and it didn't really seem to make too much of a difference. It helped some, but it was still squeaking. So flash forward to yesterday, I went over to Napa. I told them what the deal was. I said, hey, can you help me out? Give me some options here. So what I want to show you right here, this is the original BMW brake pads I took off. Almost worn down to nothing. Definitely time to change them. You can see on the back here, if it'll focus in on it, down there where it says BMW Jurid, that's the original manufacturer of the brake pads for this car. So you can see the design of it is just the one flat piece of pad. These right here are the Napa branded pads that I got, that I originally put on here. They look identical, and that's the brake lube on the back of it. They look identical. It's the same flat surface, just like the original pad was. Squeaked like crazy. So these are the old ones here. I went over to Napa yesterday, and the guy told me, he said, yeah, you get that sometimes with the replacement pads when they don't have a split down the middle of it. And he said that these are the right pads for this car, but they're a semi-metallic, and they're not listed as OE compound brake pads, and they don't have the split down the middle. So what he did was, he told me to take these pads off here and take them back in, and he'd give me credit, which is about 40 bucks. And I went ahead and bought these. I don't even know how you say that. Alcaburo Brake Experts. Anyway, these pads here are OE compound, and they have the split down the middle of the pad, which, according to the guy at Napa, will give some of the brake dust somewhere to go, and then it can drop out of the bottom, and it'll reduce any of the squeaking that was going on. So, looks like a fairly simple concept, and I don't know, that's all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and put just a touch of the lube on the backing plate here before I put them on, and you can see the copious amounts of brake quiet I had put on the mounting points for the caliper. Everything I was reading online was telling me the caliper was moving just a little bit and it was causing squeaking, or the pads against the caliper mount was causing the squeaking. So I put the brake lube on there, and it didn't really make any difference. It helped some, but not much. So I'm gonna pop these into place and put them on there and hope for the best. So this is some of the lube that came with the new brake pads. I'm gonna put just a touch of this on the back of these brake pads here, just to give them all the help I can possibly give them to not squeal. And right about there is how it's gonna sit into the caliper. take just a little bit of brake parts cleaner. I'm going to try to clean the front of that pad off if I got any of that lube on there. Which is entirely possible. Yeah, there's a little on there, not too bad. Okay, I'm just gonna set this one right here in position. Got our lube already on there, and then I'm not going to put any more lube on these contact points because I think it's got plenty. And then we're just going to slide this whole thing over and into place. Caliper bolts worked in. I have this retainer clip on the front, and then I'm tightening the two mount bolts down. I think the book that I have calls for, I think it's 48 foot-pounds of torque, but really it's about all you can get on there with a 3/8 wrench, socket wrench. So that's what I'm doing. So we've got our pads in place. We've got everything is still lubed up from before. I even took some of the lube off, some of the extra. Got our two caliper mount bolts in, and now this thing pops into these holes here. And you got to make sure that these hooks, actually there's a recess back up in here. You got to make sure they get up under that recess. There's one. These things are such a pain. And I'm sure there's a trick that I don't know on how to get them in. That much I am positive of. But by the magic of brute force, you wind up getting them in there. Like I said, make sure those two things, they get up under that. There's a lip in there. And these two ears get over the outside of the caliper mount. And with that, we will tighten down the mount bolts. And just like on the back, you got the caps that go over the caliper bolt holes. I happen to be working on the driver's side right now, which on this car has the brake wear sensor. I bought this new also when I replaced the front pads originally. And there is a groove. I might be able to show you. There's a groove on the pad. That groove right there. And there's a notch on the sensor. It goes in just like so, and it slides all the way down in there. It pops in. So that's what I'm going to do on this new one here. Okay, there you heard the thud in there. And that's about all that there is to that. Just make sure that it's in there nice and snug. And then the caliper, the bleeder screw cover then goes over the wear sensor cable keeps it out of the way. Okay, so our bolts are tight. I got this clamp on. All I'm going to do is take a little brake cleaner, clean off the rotor. Alright, so that's it. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and hopefully call this good.